Welcome everyone to another CTC Software webinar. My name is Chris Bircher, Director of Technical Services here at CTC, and today we are going to provide an introduction to the Project Snapshot Exporter from the BIM Data Suite. And basically, I'm just going to show you everything you need to know about the Snapshot Exporter utility. Before we begin though, I want to remind everyone I encourage everyone to ask questions throughout the webinar using the questions panel. I will do my best to answer those as we go, and hopefully you can get through all of them. Otherwise, I will make sure to answer everything that's remaining at the end and kind of do a little recap for you. This is also going to be recorded and will be made available on our YouTube channel shortly after the presentation is completed. And with that said, let's just get going. All right, so one of the more popular areas of Revit and BIM lately has been the eye, getting the information out of the models. We spend all this time putting together our designs and, filling up our Revit models full of data. And now we need to get it back out for whatever the case may be. There's umpteen different reasons why you would want to get your data out. Need to see the health of the model. Maybe I want to create a data lake so that we can check back on things and learn from past projects, or gather data from a previous project so we know how to do the next one, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of different reasons why we need the data back. Project Snapshot Exporter from the Data Suite is a perfect utility for getting access to all of that data and putting it into a database so that it can be viewed in a format that is easier on the eyes. And it allows you to review everything kind of all at the same time. So with the Project Snapshot Exporter today, what I hope to do for you all is get you familiar with the interface, show you how to capture the data from the model, how to customize some of the filters and get it set up on a kind of reusable or repeatable basis, and then how to review it and how we've set it up so that you can review it quite easily. If you want to customize it after the fact, that's up to you, but I'll get you the basics at least today. Now, this is not exactly something I'm good at showing via PowerPoint, so here we go. We're going to go right into Revit for this. All right, now I've got a Revit model. This is just the Snowden sample project in this case. I'm mixing it up a little bit today. And I just wanted to show you how this works. So the first thing I need to do is set it up to get my data. And that will be on the CTC Management tab. You'll have a little BIM Data Suite panel over here with one orange icon, Project Snapshot Exporter. So there's a whole lot of prereqs and setup stuff that goes into setting up Data Suite. We're not going to get into that in this presentation. That's another one that's coming up here in a few weeks. And in this case, we're just going to get the data. So I'm already connected. It's pointing to my database that's stored locally on my machine. And I need to customize what I'm trying to get my hands on. So this interface here is really just what are you trying to do and where does it need to go, right? There's not a lot to this UI at this point. So right now, it's naming my snapshot a certain way that I can change, and you can call it whatever you want. I like just kind of leaving it alone because every single time I take a snapshot of this file, it's always going to have the same name. Only difference will be the date. And then you have four options for where you want this stuff to go. There's a SQL database, which is kind of the primary home for all of this stuff within the Data Suite setup. If you don't want to use SQL and you want to use something else, you have the opportunity to pull out an XML file, a JSON file, and you can use whatever database structure you want. You will have to rebuild those tables and kind of put it all back together for your own benefits. But if you're just willing to, if you're wanting to do that, be my guest. the data is there for you to use. And then we also have the CTC model compare option. And when working with SQL, this actually serves as a very nice little backup in case it times out for whatever reason, because your database is full, or there's a hiccup in the system and internet drops off or the network drops off and there was an interruption. We can use the model compare file to write to SQL. And so I always do snapshot to the server database and to a model compare file. I do that just in case. And if I don't need it, I delete them. No big deal. So it's just a way to kind of cover all your bases just in case. Now, if I don't do anything right now and I hit take snapshot, it's going to take a full-blown snapshot of the entire file, getting me all the data, and I didn't have to do a thing, which is great. But depending on the size of the project, that's a lot of data, and that could take some time. You know, if you're working on a 600 meg hospital edition, that's a lot of information, right? We've got thousands of families with tens of thousands of parameters and views and schedules and linked models. It's just a lot of data. So we can customize what we're looking for here, and that's through the filters. So when you click on the filters, you get access to all of the categories, the different data types, and the parameters on the first tab here. Second tab is define what levels you want to work with, what phases, or views. If you want to dial it in and go to a specific point in the model to extract some data. Now, more often than not, from my experience and what I've seen, either groups are taking snapshots of the entire model because they want to create like a data lake to do some, to review previous projects to decide how they should be doing the future projects or the next project better or faster. Or they're using it to do health checks to see what's in the model and what's good, what's bad, what's ugly, and where it is and how to fix it. And that's kind of how I'm going to gear this up. There's a couple of different ways you can set this up. The first one is from scratch, where you can uncheck boxes to include all and hit edit, which then allows you to pick and choose which categories you want to extract data from. So if you're looking to do a true health check, you probably want to scan all of the categories, because if you're in an architectural file and you have structural analytical things floating around in your model because someone accidentally clicked create analytical model, you probably want to know that so you can get rid of it. However, you can pick and choose exactly what you want to work with. Maybe you only want modeled categories. You don't care about the annotations and the tags. So any sort of 3D component, you can just run through here and grab all of them and add those to your list and just kind of keep going and build it out. Maybe you only care about architectural stuff. If there's a mechanical equipment in there, so be it, right? You're only looking to get an architectural data set or a structural data set. Just pick those categories and add them to your list. You can create as many different filter settings files as you want, and load those in and process those, and take snapshots of a model. If you want to take a couple of different iterations of the same file, you can certainly do that. It's up to you. And then if you did have those settings, once you've got it configured, you can save it, go to another project and load it. And in this case, I'm just going to load this optimal health check snapshot that we have. These both come with the installer, so will give you the full snapshot and the optimal health check snapshot filter sets, so that you can at least you have something to start with if you'd like, and you can edit those as you see fit. Now, so this is the full list of categories. The parameters to include here, we have a couple of different options. This allows you to customize the list of things that you care about. So we have all the kind of dimensional values, family name and type, categories, IDs, what levels and styles are being used, subcategories, you know, work sets, work planes, views, sheets, you know, the common stuff. But there may be a specific parameter that you're looking for that you've added to your projects, and then you've added all your families. We can basically look through the project and effectively parameters from your shared parameter file and get those added to the list as well. So if there was certain data that your manufacturer information, for example, if that was important to you and you wanted to make sure that you were including that in your data reports, go find it, check that box, make sure it's added to your parameter list so that you know. Maybe the Omni-class and assembly codes are important. Grab those, bring them in. That's totally fine and quite easy to do. You just got to search it for it here. Now, if I wanted Omni, we can grab those. If I wanted assembly, we can grab those and just make sure that they're all added to the list over here. Or you can just select everything and do a blanket grab of everything. And if it's there, great. If it's not, great. Nope, no harm, no foul. It takes longer. The more data you look for, the longer this will take. And then ultimately, the larger the file, the longer it takes. So keep that in mind as you're putting this all together. Again, if you need all the data, you need all the data. It just is what it is. So there's two different parameter sets here to choose from. We've labeled them as fast and as slow. And really, the only difference between the two is how Revit allows us to access them. So in reality, the slow parameters here, we've had to do some tweaking in the code to make sure that we can get access to this data, because natively, sometimes when you ask for what design options are being used and what design options elements are placed in, or what design option a view is associated with, on the first try, Revit might throw an error at us. On the second try, it might work, or it might throw another error. So we've had to play this game to keep scanning it and build in some built-in error trapping until we get the data that we need. And we always get, when we get the data, just with these particular parameter values, and it takes longer at times. That's why we call them slow. That's all, in case anybody was wondering why they're slow. So I'm just going to use the health check one in this case, and the example I'm going to show you, that's how I built it out. And you hit begin, and then it's going to chug for a little bit. On this sample file, this particular setup with the health check and not touching anything, this took me about 5 minutes for the snapshot and to write it to my SQL database all at the same time. So that's not too bad. The other ones that we have, with our main office building, that one took a few minutes as well. So it's not that big a deal. Now, if this is something that you want to do on a regular basis, you can schedule this as well through Windows Task Scheduler, so that every Wednesday at 7 p.m., this tool will fire up Revit and start taking snapshots of your models. And then every Thursday morning when you get to the office, you can open up your Power BI file, hit refresh, and start reviewing your data. So you do have that option built in if you need to. We can even build in options to set some of your defaults here for what you're going to write when the scheduler hits off. So I'm going to do SQL Server and my model compare. Where are my libraries and my settings stored? Where all my logging is going to go to? Do I want email notifications when things are done? And what my default filters are going to be. So if you could set it up to be the health check, schedule it to run on 5 different projects every night, and then every morning when you come in, you've got new data to review. So it's pretty slick. honestly. So instead of sitting here making you watch me take a snapshot, I'm just gonna minimize this real quick and pull up my SQL first, so just so you can get a taste of what we're getting here. I'm not good with SQL, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. But so what happens as part of the setup for BIM Data Suite is there will be a SQL database provided with the installer. The instructions will explain how to get it set up and viewable in SQL Management Studio like I got here. And this is how it's formatted. So you get your CTC BIM data database, and everything is formatted for the BIM Data Suite. Specifically, we're focusing on the snapshot tables today, and all the data gets written here. And this can live behind your firewall on one of your servers, or you can throw it, if you guys use Azure services, you can use an Azure SQL Server and write everything to there. It works in both places just fine. Same tables, same process, same setup. The only difference is that you're restoring the database that we provide to your Azure SQL Server. So, but the data's here, and just to show you what it looks like, I'm just going to do a quick select top 1,000 rows on one of these tables here, and you get an idea. So we're extracting all these different IDs and GUIDs and parameter things and names and values. It's hard to read, right? It's hard to find what you're looking for in SQL, especially if you don't understand how SQL works, like me. I'm just scratching the surface, and I can basically sort alphabetically, right? So I'm not going to show you anything. This is about it right here. We're done with SQL. But this is how the data is coming in. This is how it's being formatted. What then can happen is we can pull up Power BI, and this is a template file that we provide for the Data Suite snapshots. And we can point this Power BI file to our SQL Server, hit refresh, and now we're going to start getting that snapshot data here. So what I've got in front of me is a list of all of the files that I've taken snapshots on and the various dates in which the snapshots have been taken. So right now, what I'm getting as is a cumulative report of all of the files and all of the snapshots. So I know all the file size that I've got, how many work sets that have been found, how many families, all the views, all the warnings, everything. So it's a right now, probably not terribly valuable because it's showing me everything. Thankfully, I can pick on a specific project file, which will update all of the numbers, and then I can pick down to a specific snapshot instance. So with these Snowden samples, I took 3 of them this morning just so we had kind of a current report. But what I want to show you is kind of how some of this stuff is changing. So I've been playing around a little bit this morning just to kind of give you an idea of how this will work. So the whole point is to take a few snapshots at least of the same files so that you can start to see progressions and get comparisons and see, where things are increasing or decreasing or popping up where they shouldn't be popping up. Example, I took this snapshot this morning. It has 2 work sets, a couple of links and imports. 200 views. Dimension types and text types are pretty low. Component families is whatever. A couple hours later, took another snapshot. The view counts go up. The work set count went up. The import count went up 1. Families went up. So you can start to get an idea of what's happening. And then down here at the bottom, we have snapshot times. And generally speaking, those are indicative of what is in the file too and how much longer it's taking to take a snapshot. So my first one this morning, the actual snapshot took 1.5 minutes. where it was actually extracting the data from the file. The second one took a little longer. The third one got a little quicker. But you start to get an idea of how things are performing potentially, and how much data we're actually pulling out. And then, this is kind of our overview tab, right? Once we pinpoint something on here maybe that we're not happy with, like project parameters, or actually that's okay. I was reading that backwards. I thought there was only one used. Let's see here. The system families. I mean, we can go to any of these tabs really, but we get a tab for each of these headings down at the bottom. I want to show you how these work. For, let's say, work sets. It's going to give you a list of the work sets that are in the file and really that are being used in the file, right? So, well, I take that back. Let me reset that. I had a filter built in. It's a list of all the work sets that it can find that are being used at the moment when the snapshot was taken. Now, initially, it started off with just the two, workset 1 and shared levels and grids. The next snapshot updated it, and now I've got workset 1 and workset 3 that were in use. Change it again, and now we start getting some of these other ones in here. And then you can start to see what work sets certain things are on, how many elements are on a work set from a particular category, and you can start to kind of filter your way through this list and find out how many columns are on the core and shell versus on the interiors. Maybe you see something that's on the wrong work set that shouldn't be on that work set. You can start to kind of filter through this list a little bit and kind of get an idea. Now, again, it's a little granular, right? Or high level. We're not seeing the specific families and what some of the parameter values are. So you can customize this and add fields to this and pare it down a little bit further to get more data that you need that's more valuable to you. Like on the component families tab, for example, you could come down here and add work set to this and start to find out what families, how many there are, what work sets they're on. For doors, I've got so many doors, a few of them aren't even being placed at the moment. That leads me to believe that those were just loaded in for whatever reason. They're not being used. I should probably purge them out. Or maybe those are my new standard and I need to replace what's in here with those new doors, right? Maybe this is my office door, my corporate door that we use for all our projects, but for whatever reason, they're using the out-of-the-box stuff. So it paints a picture for you as you start to go. And tells you exactly how many of everything are in the file at that moment. Now, I'll just take one step backwards to the warnings tab here. Now, if there are warnings in your file, and hopefully there's not too many, we're going to see those here, and you'll be able to specify which, it's going to give you the master list. You can click on one, and it's going to tell you what elements are effectively being called out or are associated with these warnings and what their IDs are and where they are. And if you're just doing a holistic view, looking at everything, it's going to be a pretty long list of everything, but it'll tell you what project it's associated with. You'll be able to find that out and go deal with it. If you want to put together different charts and graphs to highlight some things, go for it. If you know Power BI, it makes it really simple to go through some of that stuff. But yeah, so we can review our project parameters with this. We can review our work sets, elements that are contained within groups, and how many group types and instances of each group are being used. It's pretty well put together. One of the tabs that I like the most over here, if I just scoot over a little bit, are the dimension segment tabs. Now, if you're familiar with our tools at all, on the BIM Manager Suite, we have a tool called Dimension Checker. And Dimension Checker will help you find dimension strings that have overridden values for whatever, if it's replaced with text or they've added text to as a prefix, suffix above or below, or if they've truly overridden the dimensional value with text as another dimensional value. In this case, with this example, these are all overridden the way I would expect it to be overwritten and the way it should have been overridden. If I switch this to a different file though, and show you what I mean, and say I'll pick that file on that day, you can see here, I've actually got dimensional values for my text override. And there's no, some of them have periods or dots in them to try to fake it. Some of them don't. So somehow they figured it out and found a way to go ahead and make it work. Now, so you get more insight as to what's actually happening in the file, like you do with Dimension Checker, but we're getting it in a snapshot. And now I can go ahead and review this information against different dates and time to see if this list has increased and people continue to do it, or if it's decreased and they're actually picking up the issues and resolving them moving forward. So that's one thing that I use this to keep tabs on some of the files, is to make sure that we're not getting too many fake dimensions here. Excuse me. We did have a question come in that I want to hit real quick, which I think is a great question. What is the difference on using Project Snapshot Exporter versus using the Model Health Dashboard? So, great question. The Model Health Dashboard, and I'll jump back to this because some of you may have noticed this, is this item here on my title sheet. It's a new tool that we've released not too long ago. The Model Health Dashboard is only giving you small bits and pieces of information about the current project when synced to Central. And it's only giving you basic family, CAD import, material counts, work set counts, line styles, file size, open save times, and smaller, kind of on-demand sort of pieces here. The Snapshot Exporter utility, and one more thing. The Model Health Dashboard only gives you information about the current file, and it lives in the current file. I can't export this very easily, right? This isn't being written to a database. I can't view it currently in any other format other than the Model Health Dashboard. So that means I have to physically open up each project to review this chart. Snapshot Exporter, I can schedule all the processes to write to my database to view all at once in a Power BI file, and I have access to everything. And I mean everything. I could find that each individual air terminal family that were placed in my file came from which manufacturer and have which model number if I wanted to. I literally have access to every single piece of data that I selected to be exported. So I can set it up to do the exact same thing as the model dashboard to give me health check reporting that I can have run on all of my projects nightly or once a week, so that I can do a review like I'm doing right now, or I can open each individual file up and review them with the health dashboard. So the BIM Data Suite and the Project Snapshot Exporter are meant to give you access to all of the data for whatever the case may be, depending on what you want to do with it. If you're just looking at health check stuff, maybe this might be too much. So, yeah, so getting back into the Power BI file that we're looking at here. So dimension types and segments was one of my favorite ones, but we also are recording text types, line styles, views in the model, and can be filtered to show views not on sheets or views of certain categories and types based on the project and what you're looking at. And then if I keep going, it gets into materials and views on sheets. To get back to a point here, I've shown kind of a specific data set here, right? But this isn't everything. This is everything. So, and it's all based on what you have requested. So, for example, I just want to point out, if I grab, say, parameter name, it lists every single parameter that it found from the however many models that I've took a snapshot on and made them available here. And now I've got access to these. So if I want to know what the values of this is, I can start to drag other data in and get parameter values, right? And then I can find out what family it came from and what project it was in, and start to consolidate and group things together and filter things out to only show me certain bits of information. But the data is all here. And so while some of the data that I did show seems like it's very similar to what Model Dashboard is doing, it's only scratching the surface as to what Data Suite can actually do and what it's actually giving you. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear in case someone was in the process of asking that question again. Yeah. So the more experienced you are with Power BI, the more you can do with the data at your fingertips. If you've got a SQL database administrator in your office, SQL DBA, they can help streamline some of this process for you too, and you can even create custom relationships between the different tables inside of the SQL database, or they can do some customizations to the data that comes into Power BI to give you access to even more data than what we've already provided. So there's a lot to gain from this that you can't just get with a model dashboard or Hive's project activity logger. This is, if you can think of it and you want to extract it and get the data out of your Revit files, we can get it. So, yeah. I'm trying to think if there's something else I wanted to point out. I'm not very good at building Power BI reports either, so I'm not going to sit here and try to pretend like I know what I'm doing. I just wanted to I can get a list. But I wanted to make sure that you guys understand that whatever you think you need, Data Suite will get it to you. And what I will add before I shut this down today is, if you have questions about the data, you're interested about getting data out of your models, and you have questions about what type of data you need and what tool will help you get that data, just let us know. Reach out, info@ctcsoftware.com. We're here to help. Or you can visit us on our website at ctcsoftware.com and just reach out. And we can help you determine if Data Suite can get you the data that you need, or if it's a different tool that you need. But let us know. Come look us up. You can also get more information about the BIM Data Suite and the Project Snapshot Exporter on our website. If you go to the products page, it's all here. A couple short videos, some notes on it. And you can also go to our YouTube channel where we have a BIM Data Suite playlist. Bunch of videos up there about Data Suite and a few other tools, in case you haven't been there yet. So I suggest taking a look, seeing if there's information here that you're intrigued in, and you can always just reach out. All right, that concludes it for today. I want to thank you all for attending. I appreciate you, and I enjoy doing these every week. So we look forward to seeing you guys next week when we talk about another topic.